stand and say the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll call the meeting to order. First on the agenda is the agenda approval. Is there any changes or corrections? Doesn't appear.
Sorry.
That's okay. So if I get a motion.
I'll move.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public input. I see nobody here for public input, so we'll close public input. Consent agenda. Any changes there? Thank you. Motion to approve.
I can't find it now, but I was looking at it yesterday. I'm not sure which report it is in, so if someone please help me if it's in the consent agenda. For past dues on rental, it was either on Meadows View or Meadows Edge, there was a large dollar amount. Which report would that be in?
It would have been in the ADJOURN's financial reports. And then, yeah, it would have been in that report.
So, under the 5C?
Yes.
Here we go, thank you.
So you want to pull that for,
Yeah, I'd like to pull down,
Discussion.
I have a question on it.
okay, so 5C, it will be pulled for discussion.
Otherwise, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Shar.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. So I guess we'll discuss the pulled first.
Okay, do you want me to? Okay, so under, on Meadows View, net delinquent on HR is 40,000, and on Meadows Edge, it's 27. That seems like a large dollar amount to me, so could you just explain how many units and how long that's been? And if it's in all these reports, I just got these, so I haven't looked in here.
What you received in paper is identical to what you have in
Okay.
your report.
Okay,
So you're looking at can you tell me exactly where you're looking?
okay, so it's on, let's see, it's on page 2. It's under the tenant status. And I know there's a process. If someone's delinquent, you have to, work with them. Could you just explain the process again? Because it just seems like $40,000 is a lot
This is what.
in back rent that is not paid.
So you're looking at delinquents.
So I take the financials that you send and boil down to key pieces so that there's not quite so much to weed through from the board's perspective.
Yes, that's perfect,
And
thank
the
you.
key, so that's what you're looking at, and they should match identically with all of the paper here.
Yep. All right, so we're looking at, to be able to tell the whole story, I'd have to look and see and print a delinquent report, which I believe I have here. Just give me a moment to grab that.
Sure.
This
And
is
I
from-
apologize for not asking you before the meeting.
That's okay, as long as you have patience with me, we'll look through paper.
Your concern is that it seems awfully high.
Yeah, it just seems like we're allowing people not to pay their rent in a timely manner.
Before
So-
we call them out.
Yeah, and then it gets so big, it's impossible for them to pay it.
So tenants are given 15 days to pay rent. So they can only be, not even a month behind. So for September, they are now receiving notice, and they will have 15 days to pay their rent in full.
Okay?
This amount grows when we have to file an eviction, which sometimes takes time.
Yep.
This amount grows when a tenant decides that they are gonna give us notice, which we have to honor. And so they may have up to 60 more days to stay. And then they just keep accruing, you know, the rent amounts just keep growing. So those are circumstances where you're gonna see that amount grow. So it's not that it's not being addressed. We also have circumstances where a tenant abandons a unit and they continue to be responsible for rent. And then you're gonna see those amounts getting bigger and bigger. So it's not that it's not being addressed right away, it's just those other variables. Things like waiting for a court date for eviction, things like notices given by a tenant, and then abandonment of units. So, and that holding of responsibility. Because according to their lease, no matter the circumstances, they're responsible for their lease term. And that's why those amounts can grow.
So I knew there was a reason, so thank you
Yeah.
for explaining that. And I'm not holding you to a dollar figure, but just as an example, out of these 40,000, how much do you suspect we will have to write off? Because I'm looking at the reasons you gave me and chances of them paying are like zero.
Slim to none. A lot of times when they reach a point of delinquency this far, they walk away. And then we're forced to send them to collections. And
Yeah,
the only
which is-
time many times the only time we recoup that money is when they're seeking housing somewhere else, whether they want to rent or they want to buy a house, and they find out they have bad credit. And that's the benefit of sending them to collections, is because that becomes public knowledge. And then they come back and they say, okay, I want to pay this. And that's when, many times they'll pay it off.
So when you're looking, if say I apply to live there, is all this checked in my background before I'm renting
Before-
an apartment?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
You say send to collections, whose collections?
So we use Negotium, and basically, I am the wrong one to explain how that works, but basically we are giving that to them, so we pay them an amount to handle this collection from the person, and then they seek that money from them. Like I said, it's rare that they'll even respond until they have a need.
So are they, is this company very successful? Appears not so, really. I mean, do we analyze that? Do we know what their rate of collection is compared to other peers or other collection agencies?
I know that we have switched collections. We've used other collection agencies and have moved to Negotium and have been with them. I don't know exactly how long, but I can look into that to see,
Because I mean, if they're not performing, we might have to change.
right?
And then, do they take it as far as taking these tenants to small claims court and getting a judgment? Do they do that at all?
As far as I understand, no.
Because that would be very beneficial for long-term collection too, because they won't be able to buy a vehicle or anything with a
Yeah.
judgment.
Yep.
So when I'm looking, I'm jumping ahead here, but just for conversational purposes. When I'm looking at the 26 budget, I don't see a line item in here for, things we have to write off for revenues. Should that be a line item, or do we want to address that later?
That's later, and that's
Okay.
outside of
Okay,
that.
okay,
So-
thank you. So then, do we need to approve this because I pulled it out?
Yes.
Okay, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Old business, DW Jones Management Property Discussion.
Can we pick up right where we left off?
Sure.
Okay.
I asked Angie, she has kind of a list of things that she's gonna go through, and so we can start with that and then ask questions as we go through the process and some of the information. In particular, the bad debts and the write-offs, we have to get our arms a little bit around the process piece of that. So DW Jones has a process where they say that they, when they turn it to collections, anything that has happened while they have been managing the apartments has not come to this board for sort of disposition. And so we just need to figure out when's appropriate time for you to weigh in on the collections, what that kind of process is. So part of this is a discussion related to exactly what they do with their tenants, a little bit more in depth. We've got some to look at that have moved to that, and then how we want to move forward from a board perspective on when do we put these on the agenda for you to just acknowledge and take action that we're doing something with them.
My thought is too, I'm not inclined to write off stuff so rapidly. Once collections, if they fail and they're not successful, then I think we should go one step further and turn those over to a local attorney to file in small claims courts. And then, it might sit on the books for a year or two, but you might actually collect some of that if you get a judgment.
So here's the hesitation with that. Is it worth the investment?
Well, that's what we'd have to find out.
Yeah.
You'd have to run it for a couple of years and see how well you collect.
Right, right.
I know in my personal business of doing it, I get paid 80% of the time.
And the
just have
investment
to
with legal fees is worth it?
Well, or you could have staff go to small claims court. And it's not hard, it's not difficult, you just have to have the supporting documentation, and 9 out of 10 of them aren't gonna show up anyhow, and you're gonna win by default. So you'll have a judgment, lickety-split, for, what, $150 in an application?
And then what happens from there? So you get a judgment in your favor, and how do they collect the money from someone who won't respond?
You can have the sheriff garnish their checking account. You can, if they have nothing, but then they go to purchase something or take out a loan somewhere, they will not get approved. So you've got them. You've got your thumb right under them until they pay off your debt. Now, there's still some that, you might find after a while it's just impossible. But it gives you more tools in your chest to try and collect it. And like I say, 80% of the time I've done it in small business, I've collected it. And a lot of times just the application, and then they get a letter saying they're being sued in small claims court, we'll get the bill paid.
Okay,
Or at least get them on a payment plan, something,
okay.
rather than just writing it off. I mean, it's like, we can't afford to write this kind of money off all the time.
It's a lot of money,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd like to try that for a couple of years at least, and then somehow we can track it and see how successful we are. That way we've got the data to support whether it's something we continue with or not.
And get some metrics on the collection agency to actually see if they're doing a good job for us or not. If they're not, let's move on to a different one.
So you want success rate with Negotium, and you also want to see what their policy is on small
What their
claims
process
court.
is, Yep.
And
So if
then,
they don't do small claims, then we should.
okay, yeah, and so then you want to know that information, and then we decide where we're gonna go from there.
Yeah, so
We're
when
gonna
you
do
get,
small claims.
when you get to the point where the company can't collect, and they say, we can't collect this, then it comes back to you guys and you come to us and say, okay, we have these 3 that we'd like to try in small claims court and get a judgment. And then they're gonna sit on the books for a while until they get paid, but then a year and a half later, if it's nothing's happening or you're running into trouble trying to get it, then come back to us and say, okay, here's a situation with these 3, we suggest we write them off.
Okay,
So it's kind of a 3-step process to
okay. All right,
And from an accounting perspective, we will maintain an allowance. So as soon as we do the allowance, it does on the financial record show as a bad debt. And then it'll go through, but it'll also stay on a receivable, but stay in an allowance, so it'll be a net zero. And then if we get money at some point, then it's gonna show as removing those two in a revenue. Or so it's gonna remove the receivable and the allowance, so it's not gonna impact necessarily the financials, but it's gonna reduce the receivable and the allowance, and you'll get more cash. But I just wanted you to understand that the accounting process for that will mean that we will, quote, write it off because we're gonna include it in the allowance, but we will continue to maintain it in the receivable as well, so that we do monitor how many of those are in that state.
So I have one more question, getting back to that 40,000, because you guys manage many public housing units, correct, for other people? Is this kind of an average when you look at the percentage of rental units, and are we right in the ballpark? Are we high, low?
No, we're sitting in, you know, when you average things out, there's gonna be properties that are higher, some that are lower, of course, but yeah, this is where things are sitting. It's a bad state of, you know, the way that tenants function now and taking responsibility. There's just been a big change. So,
Well, it seems to me we're kind of enabling that though, because, I mean, yeah, they'll have a bad credit report, but then they'll just go the next thing and come in with 2 or 3 months cash to pay you, and people will take them. And then the process starts all over again because nobody's holding them accountable long-term for their debts. And that's why I want that extra step in there, so there's some accountability and.
definitely something we'll look into. I know that when I've asked those questions in the past, part of the reason we haven't and we don't pursue some things is because of the expense involved.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you've had other experience, I'm, you know, more than willing to look into that. So, yeah. The thought going forward, you've been given a report of, a collections report for each property and what has already been sent to collections. The thought going forward is that when we have tenants who move out and we have, you know, all the charges are finalized, that final bill that we would normally send to collections, what we're going to do is have that information ready for you each month as, you know, if it applies. So some months you'll have nothing, and others you'll have information about a tenant who we are proposing to either send to collections or take to small claims court. So that's what we're gonna do going forward. So that you have that information.
Thank you.
So, but you're not the only ones concerned. These are conversations with every owner, at every property. So, okay.
Can we talk a little bit about Meadowview and Meadows Edge and what you think might be some of the reasons why they are lagging in lease-up?
We were hit hard with vacancies at both of these properties this year. And I was visiting with the leasing agent this morning, and I said, I'm not exaggerating, because sometimes I do, when I say that we lost 50% of our tenants this year. And some of them were people that were deported, and they just were gone. And so, you know, to catch up to that, when you've got your normal 1 or 2, maybe 3 vacancies a month at a property like this, you know, you can keep up with that. But when you've just got a bunch, it's hard to catch up. We are finding that there is a steady flow of inquiries. People are interested in the properties. There are many that do not have the credit score of 600 or more. And then some that are not, they're not approved because of criminal background. So those are the reasons that we have to deny them. I asked if the rents are deterring people from applying, and that's not the case. I asked if, if people are coming and looking at the property and then withdrawing their application, that's not the case. So people are interested. It's just we have had a difficult time catching up. So I can't pinpoint, I can't point to something that we can improve on that's going to bring an influx of applications.
So two things. First of all, I think it was last month or the month before, I believe you guys came and asked us to lower the credit score for potential renters, which I think is a negative because already we're writing potentially 60,000 off between these two units.
Yeah.
And secondly, if there's continual vacancy rates like this, then is there adequate housing provision in the Park Rapids area? And so this is just gonna be a normal rate of vacancy?
I don't,
Or is it that there's not adequate housing for people that either have a criminal background or scores below 600, but there's adequate housing for people that are above that criteria? Do you see what I'm asking?
I'm not sure how to answer.
Okay.
So you're asking, is there adequate housing?
Well, I hear all the time that we don't have enough housing.
And yet we have vacancy.
And then, but yet we have several vacancies here, so are people not willing to live here? Are they finding places elsewhere, or is there enough housing for right in this area?
So you're thinking maybe that the housing is saturated enough?
I don't know, I'm asking a question, because I don't know.
That I don't know about this area. I can't compare. We have other properties that we manage in town, and many of them are, rural development and HUD housing, so that's different.
That's entirely
A
different.
whole different, we can't compare
Yes,
the
it
two.
is.
We have, here's one that maybe we could compare. So we manage Pleasant Court.
Okay.
We have within that property, units that are set aside as TIF units. And interestingly enough, people don't qualify to live in those units. We're having a hard time filling those. Our market units are filling fine, but those TIFs we're having a harder time filling. I'm not sure why.
Are they over income?
Sometimes. But even those that fit within income, there's other things that they don't qualify for. So TIF it's a hard thing to qualify for anyway. You've got this much of a window. So those are hard to fill.
I just wonder if some of those who are deported, they self-deported, and they liked the job that they had probably at the potato plant and liked the area, that once they self-deport and they got paid to do that, they'll come back the legal way.
Maybe. Yeah.
So there is no income level for Meadows View and Meadows Edge, right? As long as you can pay the rent, as long as you meet the criteria of a credit score of 600 and no criminal background, plus,
Yep.
you don't owe rent somewhere else wrong. That's the criteria, right?
Right, yep.
Okay.
It operates like a market rate
Yep.
building.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
I had Alicia, just for your information, and correct me if I wrote down the wrong rents, but Meadowview and Meadows Edge, a one-bedroom is $802.
It's gonna pull. Gonna pull a rent roll quick here.
Okay. And
You
that's,
got a current rent roll, right?
yes, and so that's what I pulled off, was looking at it.
802, yeah.
Okay, all right. So, in comparison, the fair market rent from HUD for fiscal year '25 is $711, and for '26 is $768. So our unit in that case is priced above the fair market rents. The two-bedroom, I see as 920.
Which fits below.
And the fair market rent for a two-bedroom for this year is 933, and for 26 is 1,008. And then for the three-bedroom, it's 1,037, and the fair markets are 1,267 and 1,395. So,
Really interesting.
isn't it interesting? And I don't know necessarily what we're going to do with that, but I did think that that is, as it comes to market rents and where these rents are priced and how we think about that, there is an interesting sort of pricing that we need to consider as it comes along.
Our original intent when we built those two was to make them market rate housing.
Market rate at the lower end of the spectrum, so those who don't qualify for some of the subsidized units that still can't afford true market rent would be able to live here. So it was really intended to be lower priced residents without the burden, if you will, of rental restriction, assuming that there's quite a few people that have some of the lower income positions that need safe and quality housing that just don't, for whatever reason, meet the income standards of some of the subsidized units. So that was the intent all along. And really, I think that we may not have necessarily kept pace with our rents in order to continue to stay. And being just above that fair market rent is really what we had targeted when we first set the rents on that. That will provide us with additional income opportunity. However, what does that do when we're struggling already to fill these units? And that's part of the analysis about why aren't we getting these units filled? Because if we significantly increase the rents, are we gonna first outpace the people who are already living there? And then does it make it harder for us to fill those units? And so I think that we really need to do some deep digging into, as we're thinking about budgets for next year. We have to set them by October 15th.
By the 15th, we have to get notices out to tenants. So would have been perfect if those budgets were done and I could bring those to you today, but they're not. So yeah, we have to. We'll start working on those next week, and have them done by the end of September.
So, will one of you help me understand, so where does the income come from if I want to live at Meadows View or Meadows Edge versus HUD housing? Where does the revenue come in to pay the rent? Is there a difference? Yeah.
Yes, there is. So anyone who qualifies for, so there's two kinds of, and I'm sure you know more than I do, but I'll just give it a high level. There's really two kinds of subsidy that happens. One is place-based, meaning that the subsidy is tied to the unit or the building itself. So one tenant moves out, then another one moves in, and it's not dependent necessarily on where they go. It's only available in that unit. It's still, what they pay is 30% of their income when they move in, but the mechanism is generally from the federal government, and it is provided, and it's tied to the building units.
And is that HUD?
And that's primarily HUD. Well, most of these
Rural
programs are HUD. There's some rural development,
We'll have-
USDA rural development.
We'll have to change course here. We have a public hearing at 11:30.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
And that's gonna be on the Countyline Estate bid openings, which I believe we have to open the bids before we have the public hearing.
Not exactly.
Okay,
The public hearing is for the public to comment on the intent to sell these properties for the purposes that we're selling them.
okay,
And then afterwards, I'll tell you the results of the bids, and then you can determine if you want to sell them or not. But since there's nobody here for the public hearing, I think it'll be really quick.
Okay,
But we do have to take a break to do that and come back to this conversation, I think.
so we'll continue with this, and, which sounds like we're close.
No, I think Jeff was saying we had to stop and
Oh,
do the
okay.
public hearing,
Yeah,
but
we
there's
still have to
nobody
do
here
that,
to,
yep.
there's nobody here to talk.
Yeah, so we'll just take the break, do it, and
Okay.
then we can come back to this conversation.
So then we will go into a public hearing. Do I need a motion for that?
Yep, motion to close the open the public hearing.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Alrighty. We are on to the public hearing.
The information regarding the public hearing has been put on the screen, and as a requirement of statute, the EDA must find the necessary findings and decision prior to selling property. We are talking about the Countyline estates, the 7 lots that we had platted earlier, and is ready for sale. We just really need to look at the restrictions that are part of this, and then does it satisfy the findings so that we can go ahead and move forward with the purchase.
So the technical reason for this is the public has an opportunity to comment on the intent to sell for this intended purpose. So that's what we're doing.
And there appears to be nobody here in public.
Nobody here to speak on behalf of that, so we did advertise this appropriately. If we can close the public hearing and go back to the meeting.
Alrighty. Motion? Thank you,
I'll
Dave.
second.
Thank you, Shar. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We're back to our regular meeting.
I had one other question then, like on the
Oh,
rents.
but Mary's not done
Oh,
explaining
yeah,
how
okay,
the,
keep going.
yeah,
No,
okay.
well, we can go straight back to this conversation or wherever Mary was gonna go with it. We can do the county line thing after we finish,
Right,
after we
yep,
finish this
yep.
item. Okay.
Yeah, that was what I was, so, and then the other one is tied to people. So.
Which is what we do.
Which is more of what we do. It is person-based vouchers. Those are most commonly called housing choice or old Section 8. And those are tied to a person. And so once you qualify, you take that voucher with you anywhere, including out of Hubbard County, if that is where you go with it. And then your rents are still paid by primarily HUD. And they pay, the individual who receives that qualification pays 30% of their income towards rent, and then HUD pays the remainder. And in our county, it's facilitated by Cass County HRA. They handle the vouchers for Hubbard County. So there's 2 mechanisms. Now, Meadowview and Meadows Edge are private pay.
Okay,
So the individuals who live there must qualify through their own resources, be it wages or disability or whatever income stream they have. They must have those resources to pay the rents as required. So it is a different source that covers the funding for those buildings than a subsidized unit.
thank you.
So the other question I had is on the vacancies. Is there a particular type of apartment that tends to be more vacant than the other ones? My reason for asking that is because you've got till October 15th to determine what to do with the rental rates.
Right.
If it's single bedrooms that are vacant most of the time and not the 2 or 3 bedroom, then we probably could easily get more in line with the data Mary shared, because we are slightly above on the single bedroom.
Those units.
Under on the other ones.
Those units are predominantly 2 bedrooms, and only 2 1-bedrooms in one and 1 bedroom in the other one.
Yeah, and it depends on, the reason for that is because of how many are available.
Yeah, and so I would say that generally they're probably mostly the 2 bedrooms. There are a couple 3s that are open, but I would say just because those buildings are predominantly 2 bedrooms, that's really where the openings are.
That was gonna be my question. 'Cause if it was like David was reasoning, if it was the 1 bedrooms, it would make it easy to lower those rents and raise the others. And that's something, I guess, if we have to have this decided by October 15th, we almost have to decide today, because our next meeting will be till the 21st, I think, of next month. 26th.
Is there a certain statutory requirement by how much rents can be increased?
Not for these properties.
Okay.
Yeah, my suggestion would that we try and get back in line with our original intent and be just slightly under. Is that was what you mentioned earlier. Some of them were quite a bit under.
Well, the 2 bedroom is, well, it's slightly under for this year, but for next year there is a larger gap. Hey, going back to Mary, what you explained about the rents, I believe the person-based vouchers, they can come from anywhere on the United States as long as their name comes up on the list, correct? Because these are these 30% and then HUD pays, is that Section 8?
So, well, yes and no. So, the place-based vouchers, and again, correct me if I'm misspeaking, the place-based vouchers, which are based on a building, typically uses coordinated entry in order to place within the requirements. Is that still the case where coordinated entry has to be used?
It does not.
Okay, so that has changed. And Section 8 is more a waiting list, and the individual who receives them goes and shops for their own places. So there's not a mechanism to import people, because we have available units, other than somebody just really wants to come from somewhere else. They will have to have a voucher though with them, because the fact of the matter is that the waiting list right now is so long that it's really difficult to get a voucher here. So the likelihood of somebody coming from somewhere else, getting on our list and taking a voucher is very improbable. If they would want to come and live here with a voucher in tow, that could be, but they'd have to kind of have a reason to come to Park Rapids to live. The place-based is a little bit different in their qualifications. They used to use coordinated entry, but if it has gone away, that's a good thing, because everyone was dissatisfied with that system, so.
And so currently, because we're private pay, when we built these, our goal was to provide housing for people that were working within our community. But the rate that they were being paid didn't allow them to pay market rate for housing.
So I just did a quick calculation this morning, and I was looking at the 3-bedroom units just as looking and saying, okay, if we went back to the intent that we had originally figured for these units, we would price our rents for 26 to be $1,400, because that would be just slightly above fair market rent. Well, that would require annual income of $56,000, which would be about $28 an hour. 2 people at $14 an hour, but that's really sort of putting it back into hourly wages. And if it was one single individual, an adult with children, which is a lot of the folks looking, a single adult with children, making $28 an hour is probably pretty unlikely. And so we're in this community, at least right now, and so that is part of the challenge. So do we try and place our rent somewhere where it seems realistic? I did not do the calculation on the one bedroom. You know, we could go to, if we went to 1,050, actually, if we went to 1,050, the income would be about 40,000. That would be affordable at 30% for those units, which is about $20 an hour. And then you'd be priced at the same level as Pinecrest, because our 2 bedrooms are 1050. So that's where we're at with those. Our 3 bedrooms are 1250. So that's where we're at with the Pinecrest buildings and the incomes. So if you think about that too, again, $20 an hour is a little bit more doable with a 2 bedroom, even if it's a single adult. They may, you know, so that ends up being more affordable. It's that 3 bedroom that's really becomes a challenge. So just to give you some assessment pieces.
Well, I would just like to say, I really like our mission from this originally, whatever we decide to do with the rents, but I want people to be able to work here, and they're fulfilling a niche, and I also want them to be able to have housing that they can afford. To spend 40 or 50% of your income or more on housing just does not make it.
And that was really the goal of these units. And so, but as we have found, some of this market is challenging. And so we end up taking more risk, which as an HRA, that's sort of within the mission of an organization, is to really kind of serve that niche that the public won't serve. So we have to be cognizant of that, and I think really think about how we want to price these, and then make a conscious choice about where you're pricing things, and knowing that that may or may not be adequate based on mission. And so this is a question about, you know, how does your mission come into play, and how you price those 2 properties. We are having much less of an issue with Regency and Cornerstone. Regency I'll just explain this quickly. On the sheet that's in front of you, you see that retained earnings of a negative, meaning that Cornerstone for the last 30 years was heavily subsidized by the HRA. And the HRA put in that much money over that period of time because for a long time people didn't pay rent at all there. That has since changed, and the folks are paying rent there. But as you see, it's 100% occupancy. We're having a very few turnover. I think that some of the people have been there for a very long time. It's meeting a very specific niche. But it just is showing the long-term commitment that HRA had to put into that property over time. Regency, we bought in 2017. It was a old LIHTC property in their 15 years of compliance. It is no longer in compliance, but again, those rents still continue to be much more affordable. You are qualified to use Small Cities program to do some rehab work. As a result, we have to guarantee that the rents are going to be more affordable, which is fine. It's doing fine where it's at. It's the other 2 properties that right now they both have positive retained earnings, but as you see, there's some struggles, and we do need to be thinking about how we look at those properties overall, and then how we price the rents in order to make them cash flow a little bit better.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Shar too. You got to keep the rents reasonable, but I don't think we can do nothing, or we'll pay the piper later when we fall further behind.
You kinda
So we got to inch them up a little bit.
Kinda gotta go with supply and demand principle. If you got high vacancies, well then you don't have much room to increase your rents, in my thoughts. It's when you got high vacancies, then you can, oh, there's competition here, increase your rents.
we were full. If we had them all occupied.
Would we say that the one-bedroom rate at 802 would probably stay the same?
Yeah, I would,
Yeah, I'd
I
be
would,
fine with that.
yeah, I
think
wouldn't
so.
have any reason to change that.
So then we'll look at the two-bedroom and three-bedrooms. Any suggestions? Or
What's a reasonable 5%? Or is that too much? What was the two-bedroom, 9 something?
920.
920, it's currently at,
Yeah, 5% would be another $45 plus.
So, refresh my memory, please, is the heat and electricity paid for? And internet at Meadows View and Meadows Edge? Is that covered in their rent, or is that extra?
The tenants pay electricity.
Okay,
but the heat is, not electric, so the electric is
Yep.
just their lights and,
Right.
and,
Cooking.
cooking,
And
and
a
then
window
air
AC.
condition, unit. We could, one savings that could help is that we could discontinue the internet, paying for the internet. That's 3,000 per unit, isn't it, a year?
Per
A month?
A year?
A month. 3,000 a month?
No, it shouldn't be that much.
No, not.
no, for the, she's
For the
talking
whole
about,
unit.
she's talking about the 3,000 a month
What do
per
we-
Meadows View.
Yeah, what do we pay a month
For the building.
Yeah, for
Per-
the building.
Per month? Okay, let me look it up. Easiest this way.
And I could look at it too, I suppose.
I'll probably hit it faster.
Telephone. Property internet is about $770 a month. Meadowview.
Yeah, which unit are you looking for, which building?
This is Meadowview, a month.
And that's not independent where you can shut it off per unit, is it?
Yeah, it is,
It is.
yeah.
'Cause that's kind of a nice collection tool. You know,
Yeah,
they-
we've done
they
that
get
at-
behind an event, the internet goes off and tool will
Oh,
get
I
paid.
see what you're saying.
Yeah,
We also would have the option of, they could buy in, they could pay. Here's how much we would charge you a month, you can,
But then would
Opt in.
that have to go on the same thing, when you're trying to collect past due an eviction, you can't turn that off during that
oh,
process?
you can turn it off anytime.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's electricity we got restrictions,
Okay.
not the
Yeah.
internet.
If they're behind
Heating
on
you
their
can't
rent,
turn
you can turn the internet off till they pay their
Okay.
bill.
Yep.
That should definitely be in there.
And for most people, that would be a real good collection tool.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
That's the advantage
That's
of
an option.
us paying for
Yeah,
it.
because we have, those buildings were set up so that each apartment is individually run. So all you have to do is go into the closet and unhook the cable, and then they lose their internet.
Be done.
Yeah,
That'd be a great collection tool.
Yeah.
So I would tend to leave that alone and just bring the rental rate up a bit
okay.
and use that as a collection tool. That'd be
So you're saying to continue to pay that bill,
Mhm.
but if they don't pay their rent, we disconnect your,
internet. That'd be the first step in the collection process. When you hit that 15-day past due, they get a notice, then maybe 15 days after that, blink.
Well,
I would-
I'd just automatically make it happen on, see, rents are due by they have a grace period until the 5th.
5th.
I'd pull it on the 5th, or the 6th.
Just update your letter that you send to them or your
Yep.
notice
Yep.
and say, your internet will be shut off
Yep.
Yeah.
until,
You pay, and then do it on the 6th, because that gives them then, 7, 8 days to figure out how to get it quick before. So,
So what was the market rate on the two-bedroom?
well, the fair market rent for this year is $933. For next year, it's $1,008.
Maybe, I don't know, is 5% a little too high? Seeing how
Well,
have
if we
some
went
vacancies.
3%, it would be
3% would be
3%.
20 bucks
27.
maybe.
We did 7% last year.
Did we? If we don't keep up, I mean,
You'll
when
pay
we
that.
don't keep up, then it's cash from us coming continually.
Yeah. I would recommend, I'll make a motion to increase the two-bedroom and the three bedrooms by 5% for 26.
We're still way below the market rate, so that, yeah. And leave, the one bedroom
Leave
as
the
is.
Single room where it's at.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Steve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
And then we'll wait until the October meeting to officially approve the rest of the budget. But then that gives them the ability to notify the tenants in a timely fashion. And then we'll look at the budget in detail for all the other costs at our October meeting when they have it done. So that'll give them some time to work on that.
Be more accurate.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, do we have any further discussion on the D.W. Jones Management Property discussion?
Well, if you have any other questions or if you have anything else that you want to bring up.
I have one more question. And so, way back when the HRDC was still doing this and working with you, at that time, there was money given to you that didn't come from the rents. Help me, Mary, to explain this better. And I'd like to know where that is in the financial reports.
Okay, so now there is a line item on the balance sheet that is called,
Which report are you looking at, Mary?
I'm just grabbing one of the
Yep.
paper ones
Okay.
because each of them have it. I just grabbed the
Okay.
first one that I grabbed.
Okay.
And on the balance sheet, it's called comparative balance sheet, and there is, on the second page of that, other liabilities due to Hubbard County HRA. That's where that shows, but I need to caveat that with a few things. The money that was provided to D.W. Jones wasn't exactly money that you provided to them. It was money that you used from general fund to pay for the operations of the apartments.
Okay.
And the number that you see there is reflective of the entire length of time that the properties have been operated. Okay, so it's like 108 or something in one, and Cornerstone is in the 300,000 stuff. So the question or the process is that once the properties cash flow, then the question is, when there's net income, when and how do we transfer that money back to our general fund? And so that's where that number is. Not all of it is specific to when D.W. Jones has needed money to pay for the security cameras or the property taxes or any of those things. It has been since the properties were opened, for the entire length of time that you've had those properties. The question is then we have to get to a place where they can cash flow, and then we can project what kinds of cash needs they're gonna have, so they don't have to keep asking us for money in those checking accounts. And then we can transfer that to our general fund.
Okay.
So these are a proprietary fund, and then we have our general fund. And they're operating with the expectation that they're going to make money at a minimum break even. and pay back the general fund for the money that you have used to support them over time. So that is the goal, and we need to get to a point where these properties cash flow sufficiently so that we can pull some of that income back and still leave some. That is getting closer with Regency, and Cornerstone. They're getting more positives than negatives. We still have a ways to go with Meadowview and Meadows Edge, and that's why I've been watching these so close and trying to figure out. One is really hinging on getting them full. 90, we do budgeting based on a 5 or a 7% vacancy rate, and that's where we're at, but we've been there for a long time. So that's part of what we need to do. And one of the things that we may need to look at is alternative advertising. What are some of the things that we can do to really do that, to get more folks in those buildings? And so that's gonna be the next key, is filling those. And then once we start cash flowing, then we can have some of those discussions about how do we transfer back to general fund.
Thank you for that, I appreciate that, and brings in a question, how do you advertise?
So we use our website,
Okay,
and we also use Facebook.
okay,
We have not invested in apartments.com, which is usually very productive for us.
it
It
is
is-
or it is not?
It is,
Okay,
but it's also expensive.
okay,
So we can have some discussions about that, Angie and I, offline, and look at some of the alternatives and, start with some of those low or no cost options right away. And then anything that may require some addition. And sometimes, marketing is worthwhile because it's effective. And so even though it might be expensive, it might fill the niche and then get us full, which then meets that need. But we'll have some of those conversations, and we won't make any expenditures until we talk with you.
Yeah, you kinda gotta do a baseline amount all the time, because otherwise you end up with openings, and by the time you get reaction, you've lost a month or two of rent.
Yeah,
do younger people even look at Facebook?
they do.
Really?
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
not on
I-
Facebook,
We,
I have no clue.
for a while, we're advertising on Facebook, and it generated some very poor applicants. But lately, there's been a lot of interest, and we pulled some good applications off of Facebook. So our leasing agents have been using that more often now, which is interesting to me. I don't like managing that. But it works, and our website works. There's a lot of inquiry, there's a lot of phone calls into the office, phone calls to my cell phone. So there's interest there. We find that printed advertisement is not as effective, is usually a waste of money, unless there's a certain demographic that we're focusing on, but in this case, it's not effective. So. I don't have anything else to bring up. Those were the key
I
things.
just have one more thing, and it was really nice of you to show up in person. It
Sorry.
was
Oh.
greatly appreciated, thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Thank you. I didn't even introduce Stacy, who is training as regional manager for the Park Rapids area. And so she's sitting in the meeting today, and I was just focused on making sure you have all your information and didn't introduce her. I'm sorry, Stacy. So she's been with us for a couple of months, and will be taking over as regional manager. So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I'll work on getting answers to questions, and I'll work with Mary, and we'll get things turned around. So,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you.
Alrighty, next on the agenda is the Countyline Estate bid opening.
So I believe you have copies of the two bids that were received. The minimum bid was $10,000 per lot. And then we had the development agreements, these are to be developed for single-family homes, that they are to be developed within a certain period of time. So I guess our recommendation is to sell Lot 1 to Timothy and Betty Goose, right?
I thought it was lot 5.
No,
Lot
it
one?
says lot 1 here.
Okay, all right, perfect.
Lot 1,
Okay.
the northernmost lot of those 7 lots.
Oh, yes, okay, sorry.
And then lots 2 through 7 to Michael Weir of BOD Construction. And that would be, so that would mean that we would get the purchase agreements to them, collect their earnest money before we could execute a purchase agreement, make sure that they sign the development agreements and their understanding of all of that, and then set these properties for closing.
And then we would have to possibly do something developmentally with lots, the one with multiple lots, because we couldn't expect him to build out all those within the time frame.
He actually asked us if we could be flexible on the
Yeah.
time frame for them,
Yep.
so that he could build 1 or 2 and see how quickly it sold. He said, if I build 2 and they sell, then I'll just build the other 5. But
Okay.
he said, this is a new area for me, a little further out from where he's done. So he may ask for us to do that.
So we're gonna wait for him to ask, otherwise we're just gonna assume
Yep.
that he's gonna fulfill. Okay,
So I think if you were to make a motion to sell according to the development agreement and timelines that we have, but to offer some flexibility in the case where they're buying multiple properties, then we wouldn't have to come back to approve that, and we could just let you know what that looks like. But Mary and I both had conversations with Michael, and he's intending to develop them. He's intending to partner with the county on future endeavors. He's successfully, in his bid, he said he's built and sold 20 single-family homes in that, $200,000 to $250,000 range, which is as good as anybody can do right now.
Would he, if you talked, would he have an issue with just 6 lots instead of 7?
No. No, it would be more inconvenient for him if they picked lot number 3.
Yeah, right.
right.
But since they picked one on the end and they're all contiguous lots remaining, I don't think there will be any issue with that.
Right, yeah.
So we have one couple, it looks like they would like to buy 1 lot. The developer would like to buy all 7.
Oh,
But I guess,
Maybe 6.
yeah, that's what I mean, he's wants, so if we, let's do that. I guess my thought on is about the agreement and everything, time will tell. Because if in a year's time, nothing's been done, or, he wouldn't be asking for an extension at that point, I'm sure. But after a year or more, and he's gotten 2 of them maybe completely done or whatever, and, I don't want to give him a blanket okay today that will extend them without having some history.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the expectation is that the first 2 houses would be started within that, on the 6 lots. His expectation is to start 2 immediately, and then sell those, and then he can determine whether or not he should build the remaining 4 or 2 more at that time.
That's reasonable.
As part of that history, there will be some action before we would even think about granting
Yeah.
something.
So then, do we need to make a motion or something on this, or?
Two independent motions, probably?
I'd make a motion to sell the 1 lot to Timothy and Betty Goose, and then 1 to sell the 6 remaining lots to BOD Construction. And we will simply put in some language that says if there is demonstrable progress on 2 or more lots, then we would negotiate, have the possibility of extending deadlines for the balance.
Sounds good.
I'll make a motion to approve the Lot 1 sale to the Gooses.
for 12,500.
Yep.
I'll second.
Steve, thank you, Dave. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
And I'll make a motion to sell the remaining lots,
At 10-5 each.
and 5 each to, what was his name? Michael, well, whatever his.
Michael Weir,
Yeah,
BOD Construction.
I'll second that and add a comment that we have a history of working with this gentleman that is very favorable, so I feel really comfortable.
Alrighty, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alrighty. New business, preliminary budget.
I included a fairly basic preliminary budget for 2026, and looking at the revenue sources. Rental income I included as a net. So it is the income netted out against the expenses. So I have another spreadsheet that lists each of the properties. As you recall, we have the 4 that DW Jones managed, but then you also have the 3 single-family properties. And those are included there. So anything related to the single-family properties and, well, all of the rentals, so insurance and taxes and any of those kinds of things show up in that area. And then they're netted and brought over on your balance sheet here, or your budget here. And then you will notice that you still have real estate taxes and insurance, and those are the properties that you hold, that you have not indicated a specific use for. So there are some general fund properties that you do pay both insurance and real estate taxes for, and then the rest of the insurance is your liability and owners and or officers and employees and all of those kinds of things. Audit expense should be fairly at that number. As you recall, last year it was huge. Based on the conversations I had with the auditor, that should be an accurate number. The Merle administration, you are entitled to take resources from the Merle program for your administrative work. That hasn't been done for a couple years, so we're gonna start working on getting that administrative dollars, which will then just overall help pay for the management contract. So it's not a separate contract, but it's another source that you can tap into to receive revenues to fund the operations. I do not believe that you have to approve it at this meeting. You have next month, actually until November. But I thought it was worthwhile for you to be able to take a look at it and think through it and see if you have any questions or want me to research anything. And then we can look at it more formally at a future month.
Is that our current levy amount?
Yes, and no. The levy for the HRA is $120,000. And then the economic development portion is not a levy, but it comes from a levy that the HRA EDA makes. It does come from the county under the economic development funding. But rather than having 2 line items, I just said that it was the levy. So 120 of it is the levy that you authorize and approve. And then the county board has to also authorize and approve it. The 100,000 is part of the county board's operation for economic development, and then is passed to you, and then you use it for your operations.
I was wondering, with this interest income, if there's any adjustments we can make as far as where the money's parked that can considerably boost this interest?
I think that there's a couple things that we need to take care of, for next year. Number one is, I don't think we need 8 bank accounts, for one. And then number two, yes, I think that there are some options, either getting a higher yield, and that will help as well, because the larger the sum of money in a particular account, the more you can qualify for. So, money markets have a certain minimum that you need to get. And right now, with all of our accounts distributed, we don't get to those dollar amounts. So if we combine and get all of our money in 1 or 2 accounts, then number one, that gets us over some of those minimums and encourages or allows us to access higher interest rates. The other thing is that as we grow our cash balances, then we have the opportunity at looking at contract or CDs or investments or some of those. Right now, we just haven't quite had enough money to really make some of those larger investments. But yeah, that's all part of some of, now we've got the weird stuff kind of handled, and now we can start picking away at some of the other really good things that we should be doing.
Because we talked about consolidating the bank accounts before already. So
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
So is everything up to date because it's been submitted to the auditor? So are you all done with going back through and trying to figure everything out?
You're actually working in 2025 now?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your hard work, you and Alicia.
Yes, we are in 2025. We will be able to actually start producing accurate financial statements from our accounting software, so you'll stop seeing just that cash flow summary. And yes, we have cleaned up and closed out, barring any audit adjustments. 24 is, we're done. We're in 25. Thank God. Yes.
Good deal. All righty. Preliminary budget looks good for a preliminary budget, so thank you for that. I guess we'll move on to the director's report.
And I just had a couple things that I wanted to mention. First of all, we are doing the audit right now. We've given them all of the information, and they're doing as much as you can. You've probably seen the confirmations. I think that they were gonna send them out. You may not have, but you'll get the conflict of interest questionnaire thing that you'll have to fill out. And then I would imagine sometime in October, they'll come and do the on-site work for a couple days, and then we should be getting close to having the audit wrapped up. We are scheduled for a public meeting on September 25th at 7 p.m., and that's going to be at Farden Town Hall. And that is in relation to the industrial park work that we're doing. Woodseth is gonna come and help facilitate a meeting up there to just really get public comment, and then provide some information just really about the kinds of development that can happen there, just because of the way that the land is. So, one of the things that was sort of mentioned is, smokestacks and all of these kinds of things, and really getting some third parties to say, listen, this is the characteristics of this property, and as a result, these are the kinds of things that really can't be there, and these are the things that can be there. Just to really sort of help define what light industrial is and heavy industrial, because that's part of the confusion, I think, of the neighborhood up there. And then I just wanted to mention that Regency is going to receive some small cities development grant funding in order to do some very necessary facelift and renovation work. The bids are ready to be let or sent to prospective contractors this week. And so we'll be able to do quite a bit of work that will, I think, really help with the ambiance around that building. It will not be able to do anything with the garages, which, as you recall, have some, or you may not recall, they have some damage that is in need of repair. But that we'll look at after we've got all of the internal, the small cities will pay for internal work and deck work. We've been having a bunch of trouble with getting a architect to draw plans as the city is requiring. I think we found one yesterday that's gonna do that, so then we can move forward with the decks. But other
Is
than
it
that,
because the project's so small, or why it doesn't?
yes, I think that that's part of it, and part of it's kind of silly. Well, so the building is 15 units, and there are decks that are lined up. So there's 3 stories of decks. The first floor is just a patio, and then the other 2 are decks. They're on 4x4s, and new building code is 6x6. The city is saying that we have to have either a structural engineer or an architect draw up the plans before a builder can bid. Well, it seems that most builders could figure out how to build a deck, but apparently not. So we have to have them draw up one set of decks because they're all identical. And that's why, is that they don't want to come and draw up plans for one set of decks, which is sort of silly, but we're doing it. So that's all I have for the director's report.
Thank you. If there's nothing else then, we will
Well,
go
we do have a
closed session.
Yeah.
So I need a motion to go into a closed session.
So move.
Thank you, Shar.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. With that, if there's nothing else to bring before the board,
Move to adjourn?
thank you, Dave.
I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.